We don't take walk-ins without insurance verification. The words hit
I know
Owen
you.
Marsh like a slap as he
You're
stood
the
in
man
that
from the
gleaming
bridge.
clinic lobby, his daughter's hand trembling in his. Then the specialist stepped out from behind the desk, looked at his face for exactly 3 seconds, and went completely white. "Wait, I know you. You're the man from the bridge." Owen Marsh had been raising his daughter Ruby alone for 4 years, ever since a car accident took her mother on a rain-slicked highway outside Portland. He worked nights unloading freight trucks and days doing whatever odd construction jobs he could find, never once telling Ruby how close they lived to having nothing at all. Ruby was 7 now, small and quiet in the particular way children get when illness becomes a permanent guest in the house. 6 months earlier, doctors had found a rare neurological condition tangled somewhere deep in her nervous system, the kind requiring a specialist so few hospitals even attempted the surgery. Owen had been turned away twice already, once by insurance that covered almost nothing, once by a hospital billing department that quoted him numbers with more zeros than he'd ever seen attached to anything in his life. This clinic was his last option, a private neurological practice 2 states away that specialized in exactly Ruby's condition. He'd sold his truck for the plane tickets. He'd emptied every account he had, including the small one he'd been quietly building toward Ruby's college fund since the day she was born, a fund that now sat at exactly $41 after covering the flight and the hotel 2 blocks from the clinic. He hadn't slept in 2 days, running numbers in his head that refused to add up no matter how many times he rearranged them. He told Ruby they were on an adventure, that doctors here had special tools nobody else had, and she'd believed him completely, the way 7-year-olds believe almost anything spoken with enough confidence. The receptionist's voice had been polite but final. Without insurance, pre-authorization, or a substantial deposit, the clinic couldn't schedule a consultation, regardless of how far he'd traveled or how urgent the condition sounded on paper. Owen stood there holding Ruby's hand, mind completely blank, unable to form the next sentence. That was the exact moment Dr. Inez Calloway stepped out from the back office to review a chart, glanced up out of pure habit, and stopped mid-stride. Her eyes moved from Owen's face to his hands, weathered and calloused, in a way that seemed to trigger something in her memory before her conscious mind caught up. "Wait," she said, walking toward him with an urgency that made the receptionist glance up in confusion. "I know you." Owen blinked, too exhausted to process what was happening. "I'm sorry. I don't think we've met." Dr. Calloway studied his face a moment longer, then said quietly, "The Selwood Bridge, 6 years ago. February." Owen's stomach dropped. 6 years earlier, on an ice-slicked February night, he'd pulled a stranger's car back from the edge of a collapsing guardrail on the Selwood Bridge, a woman trapped behind the wheel after sliding on black ice, seconds from going into the frozen Willamette River below. He'd never learned her name. He'd broken the driver's side window with a tire iron from his own truck, pulled her free just as the guardrail finally gave way entirely, wrapped her in his jacket while waiting for paramedics, and left before anyone thought to ask for his information, uncomfortable with any attention the moment might bring. "That was you," Inez said, voice unsteady now. "I looked for you for months afterward. I asked the police, the fire department, anyone who might have known who pulled over that night. Nobody had a name. I gave up eventually, but I never stopped wondering." Owen simply nodded, still catching up to the coincidence unfolding in front of him. "I was finishing my residency that year," Inez continued, glancing briefly at Ruby before returning her attention to Owen. "I was 7 months from finishing the training that led directly to this clinic, to this exact specialty. If that guardrail had given way 30 seconds earlier, none of this would exist." Ruby tugged gently at her father's sleeve, watching the strange adult conversation with quiet curiosity. Owen finally found his voice. "This is my daughter, Ruby. She has a condition. The doctors back home said you might be one of maybe a handful of specialists in the country who could actually help her." Inez crouched down to Ruby's level, offering a gentle smile, before straightening back up to face Owen directly. "I don't care what the receptionist told you about insurance authorization," Come back to my office right now. We're doing this consultation today, this hour. Whatever paperwork exists can catch up afterward. Over the following 2 hours, Inez reviewed every scan, every test result Owen had carried across 2 states in a worn manila folder, asking careful, precise questions, the kind that made Owen realize, for the first time in 6 months, that someone was actually listening rather than simply processing a case number. "This is treatable," she finally said, setting down the folder. "It requires a specific surgical approach I've performed 11 times successfully. I want to schedule Ruby for next week." Owen felt something in his chest crack open, relief and terror colliding at once. "I can't afford this. I have almost nothing left." Inez looked at him steadily. "You didn't ask my name that night on the bridge. You didn't wait for a thank you or a reward or even basic recognition. You simply acted because someone needed help and you were the person standing there. I'm not sending you an invoice for that kind of debt." "This isn't charity," she added, seeing the protest already forming on his face. "This is math. My entire career exists because of 30 seconds on a bridge 6 years ago. I'm simply making sure the account finally balances the way it should have balanced a long time ago." But we don't believe a coincidence like this happens without a quieter story underneath it. Years earlier, a tow truck driver named Reggie had taught teenage Owen basic emergency response while riding along on late-night calls, insisting every person should know how to act fast when someone else's life depends entirely on it. A retired paramedic named Corinne, who'd lived 2 doors down from Owen's childhood home, had spent countless Saturday afternoons teaching neighborhood kids first aid basics for free, believing the whole community stayed safer when ordinary people carried real skills instead of just good intentions. Neither of them was on that bridge the night Owen pulled a stranger from a sinking car. Both of them were. Reggie's ride-along lessons, Corinne's Saturday afternoon classes. They arrived on that icy bridge the instant Owen's hands moved with certainty toward a stranger trapped behind shattering glass. The surgery took place 8 days later. Inez performed it personally, 6 hours of careful, precise work that ended with the exact outcome she'd promised Owen in that consultation room. Ruby woke up groggy but stable, the rare condition finally fully addressed after 6 months of desperate searching. Inez didn't stop at covering the surgery itself. She connected Owen with a foundation the clinic quietly ran for families in situations like his, covering the hotel costs, the follow-up visits, even helping him find temporary work locally so he wouldn't have to choose between Ruby's recovery and his next paycheck. Ruby recovered fully within 2 months, and Owen found himself returning to that same clinic lobby 6 months later, not as a desperate father this time, but simply to say thank you properly, the way he'd never gotten the chance to on that frozen bridge years earlier. Never assume the smallest act of help you offer a stranger disappears the moment you walk away from it. Sometimes it waits patiently for years, through careers and cities and entirely different lives, for the exact morning it finally finds its way back to you. Thank you for joining Just a Moment. We're so glad you're here.